Girl, don't go for that. It's not...
Go to jail. Okay, girl, I've been thinking. And this one might make some of you want to pause this episode, stare at the wall, drink water, text your therapist, or text someone you should not text. Please don't. Today we're talking about something I wish someone told me sooner. You might not be hard to love. You might just be really, really good at performing for love. And the scary part, you might not even know you're doing it. Because when you learned that love was conditional, you didn't become difficult. You became observant. You became emotionally athletic. And now you're exhausted and don't know why. Let's talk about the funny self-drag. But before that, let me expose myself first. Because I am not about to sit here like I came out of the womb emotionally regulated and secure. I remember the first time I realized, or at least the first time I can see it now, I was dating this guy, Richard. Richard was, how do I say this politely? Emotionally on airplane mode. Like physically present, technically responsive, but emotionally buffering forever. And he was very self-absorbed, very image-focused. The type of guy liking every sexy girl's photo on Instagram. I know, major red flag. Still using Snapchat like it was a personality trait. And the problem wasn't just that I chose him. The real problem, I felt like I had to earn his admiration every single day. Not receive it, not exist in it, earn it. And I remember this one moment so clearly, right after I saw a new unopened box of condoms in his car 2 days before this meeting. While, of course, we were dating for like 3-4 months and I was on the pill for at least 1.5 months and he did not need a dose. So I was sitting in my car before going to meet him, looking like a pinup princess, literally like a pinup princess, because of course I look like my absolute best self wearing my top lingerie on, even though that should have been a straight breakup. And I remember the steering wheel felt slightly warm from the sun. It was like summer, it was very nice outside. My car was smelling like this expensive vanilla bombshell perfume, like insane. Like I was insanely attractive. Anyways, my phone was in the cup holder. I remember checking it, even though I had just checked it. And I was early because, of course, I was early. When you are performing for love, you don't show up relaxed. You show up prepared. And I remember sitting there and rehearsing how I was going to sound about this situation. Not what I was going to say, how I was going to sound. Less emotional, less intense, less expressive, less me. I remember literally thinking, okay, don't talk too fast. Don't go too deep. Don't ask how he feels unless he brings it up first. And don't look like you need reassurance. And I remember this weird split feeling. Like outside, I looked so calm, but inside, my brain was running simulations, like literally. It was something like, if I say this, is it needy? If I ask this, is it too much? If I tell him directly, am I going to be sounding too dramatic? And the wild part is, at the time, I thought this was normal. I thought this was just being emotionally mature, being chill, being like low maintenance. And I remember looking at myself in the car mirror and doing that tiny face adjustment we do when we want to look effortless, Effortless, sorry. I got all like goofy remembering this moment. Like I was thinking, relax your face. Don't look intense. Look soft. Look easy. And now I think about that version of me and I just want to hug her and also like shake her a little, because she thought love was something she had to earn through performance, even when she was not feeling safe to be there in the first place. But anyways, it's so sad that this girl back then really thought that love was something that she had to earn through this crazy performance. And with him specifically, I felt like I was competing with everything, like other women online, attention, validation, image, being cool enough. He was the type of guy who liked every sexy girl's photo, like I said. And I told myself, it's fine. Don't be insecure. Be the cool girl. Don't be dramatic. Meanwhile, my intuition was like, girl, hello. My nervous system was doing literally CrossFit, like, I don't know, reform Pilates. And I did all that to be gaslighted by him saying it was for us. Like, babe, it was for us. What do you mean? Like, yeah, sure. I did not have a proof that he was not exclusive with me. So I acted like I was cool about it and I believed him, which is insane. I even stupidly apologized for my questions. Like, I'm looking back and I wouldn't call myself dumb. That would be so mean. It's not it, but like, she didn't know. Poor girl didn't know. But when you're performing for love, you gaslight your own instincts because being chosen feels safer than being honest. And the wild part, at the time I thought he was just this super regulated, calm guy. But now I look back and I'm like, oh, no, babe. Like, that was like so avoidant. That was emotional minimalism with good fucking posture. And I look back now and it's awkwardly funny, like the things I did to be easy to love. I pretended I didn't see the wandering eyes, like triple X wandering eyes on this guy. I literally forced myself to like the same boring hobbies he liked. Can we talk about the fact I started playing golf? Golf! And at some point I was like, maybe I like golf. No, I literally liked being chosen. That's what I liked. I was hiding how fun I was, how curious I was, how expressive I was, just to fit into this tiny emotional container. And spoiler alert, it did not end well. Of course, it did not end well. It was one of my biggest heartbreaks, but also one of my biggest wake-up calls, though. I realized I wasn't just choosing unavailable people. I was becoming smaller to keep them. There was a version of me that thought if I'm chill enough, they will stay. That if I'm understanding enough, they will stay. That if I'm attractive enough, they will stay. That if I don't need too much, they will stay. Meanwhile, I was over-analyzing tone changes, reading into responses times like FBI behavior analysis. I was saying it's okay when it was absolutely not okay. And I was pretending I'm low maintenance while internally I was literally writing novels. Like emotionally, I was doing Olympic gymnastics. Gold medal in suppressing needs, silver medal in laughing off disrespect, bronze medal in being the cool girl. Another wild part, people praised me for it because, I was so easy. I was so chill. I was so non-dramatic. Yeah, and all of that because I was emotionally cosplaying as someone who had zero needs. Of course, I was easy to love. And like I said, it still ended badly. But now let's talk about the pattern and let's get into why this happens. If any point growing up, you learned that love equals approval, love equals good behavior, love equals not being too much, love equals emotional self-sufficiency, or that love equals reading the room perfectly, your brain goes like, okay, survival strategy locked in. Let's build a personality around this. You don't consciously think, I will now perform to be loved. you kind of think this is just who I am. And this is the scary part. But it shows up like shape-shifting depending on who you're with, downplaying your needs, feeling guilty for wanting reassurance, which is insane, being hyper-aware of mood shifts, or feeling responsible for emotional atmosphere. And here's the part that nobody talks about. You can look confident, you can be successful, and can be super self-aware and still be performing for love. Trust me, because I was there. Like, I remember my best friend was like shocked about the fact that I was acting so kind of stupid in this relationship, even though she was telling me like, you're the smartest person I know. Like, why are you doing this? Yeah. Here's the uncomfortable mirror moment. Some of us said, I just don't like drama. Like, no, babe. You are tolerating slow emotional starvation because confrontation feels like abandonment. You are not peaceful. You are emotionally fasting. Sometimes we feel dehydrated, spiritually and emotionally. And society praises us for this because we're so easy. We're so chill. We're not like other girls. Yeah, of course, because internally we are doing psychological Sudoku trying to stay lovable. Like, some of you didn't become independent. You became emotionally self-abandoning, just like I did. Some of you didn't become easygoing. You became afraid to be inconvenient, as I did. And some of you didn't become low maintenance. You became highly tolerant of emotional neglect, just like I did. And I say this with love, and also with a little shake of your shoulders. If someone only loves you when you are convenient, they don't love you. They love the version of you that requires nothing. And that alone is not intimacy. That is emotional minimalism. You know, the identity void after you stop performing? There's something nobody really talks about when you stop performing for love. Everyone talks about boundaries, self-worth, healing, standards. Nobody talks about the really weird middle phase. That phase where you don't know who you are without the performance. Because when that relationship ended, yeah, I was heartbroken, like literally like shaking, crying on the floor. But what shocked me more was what came after. Silence. Not outside, inside. I realized something terrifying. If I'm not trying to be lovable, who am I? And I remember this phase so clearly. This is how Totally Myself podcast was actually created after this huge realization. I never wanted for any other woman to forget who they really are and perform for love for a person that does not even fit their values. Like I said, I remember this phase so clearly. I had more free emotional space than I'd had in years. And instead of like feeling powerful though, I felt lost. When you've spent years anticipating moods, adjusting your personality, or minimizing your needs, or being easy, your brain is just busy all the time, you know? And suddenly, nothing to monitor. No emotional performance to maintain. And my brain was like, okay, but what do we do now? I remember small, almost embarrassing moments, like standing in a store, trying to decide what I actually liked, not what someone else liked, not what made me more desirable, not what made me more impressive, what I liked. And I remember realizing I didn't fully know. And that was terrifying because I had built so much of myself around being loved and not around being me. And that's why the movement of the podcast was so huge, you know. It literally healed me, put me back exactly into my true, authentic essence. And I never really let that go since that. Like, I was really like not downgrading myself to fit anywhere anymore. And I'm never gonna do that again. And there was this other moment. I remember wanting to text someone, not even romantically, just for comfort, for validation, like for reassurance. And I caught myself. And I thought, do I want connection right now? Or do I want to feel chosen? And that question hit me like a truck, like a motherfucking truck. For years, being chosen felt like safety, not connection, literally just safety. And those are not the same thing. And I remember nights where nothing was wrong. No drama, no emotional chaos, no mixed signals, no anxiety spikes. And instead of feeling peaceful, I felt bored, restless, like something was missing. And that was one of the hardest realizations of my life. I realized my nervous system was used to earning love, not receiving calm love. And calm can feel empty when you're used to emotional roller coasters. That's why I had it like really, really hard to actually understand the dynamic of my healthy relationship. I was bored all the time. But we can talk about this in another episode. Now I want to talk about the part that almost nobody admits about performing to feel chosen, to feel love. There is grief in becoming healthier. You grieve. You grieve the version of you who could survive anything. The version of you who could read people perfectly. The version of you who knew exactly how to stay lovable. Even when she was exhausted. Even if she was disappearing slowly. And I remember having this thought once that scared me. I think it sounded like, if I stop performing, will people still stay? And that question is so raw. Because it's not really about people. It's about, am I still lovable if I am fully myself? And healing doesn't look like I woke up confident, secure, and glowing and healed. Healing kind of looked like awkward honesty. Saying needs out loud and feeling like I might throw up after. Letting someone misunderstand me and not over-explaining in a way. Or, I don't know, not fixing emotional tension immediately. And sometimes sitting with silence, like real silence. Not performance silence. Not I'm fine silence. Real emotional neutrality. And slowly, very slowly though, I started noticing something. I kind of laughed differently. I chose differently. I spoke differently. Not louder, not more dramatic. Just more honest. Less edited. Or like less curated for emotional safety. And I started realizing I was never hard to love. Sorry for my cat. Is he gonna stop meowing? Please, Cosmo, stop meowing. Okay. Yeah. And I started realizing I was never hard to love. I was just performing for people who kind of benefited from me being that small. And the craziest part, when you stop performing, some people do leave. And that hurts. But, I think the people who stay, they do meet you. They meet you. Not the character, not the emotional assistant, not the easy version. You. Yes, you. And if you are in that weird middle phase right now where you don't fully know who you are yet, where you're not performing the same way, but you also don't feel like fully confident yet, you're not broken. You are literally in reconstruction. And this phase of reconstruction, it's messy and it's quiet and it's confusing and lonely sometimes, but it is also where your real life starts. And I think back to the girl in the car rehearsing how to be less emotional. And I don't judge her, She thought performance was survival. But somehow now I know something she didn't know yet. You don't have to shrink to be safe or to be loved, to be chosen or to belong. Not at all. And now let me tell you how this also shows up in friendships, because I have a small story about this as well. I had a friendship once where I was basically the emotional support hotline, like 24 hours from 7. Like breakup, I'm there. Work drama, I'm there. Existential crisis at 2 a.m., I'm there. But if I was struggling, suddenly it was You're strong. You'll figure it out. You're always fine. And I remember one specific moment. I was going through something really, really heavy. And I typed this long message asking for support and then deleted it and sent instead, ha ha ha, never mind, I'm good. Because I didn't want to be too much. And I remember sitting there thinking, why do I feel lonely in a friendship where I give so much? And the answer was kind of brutal, but freeing, absolutely freeing, because I trained people to experience me as low maintenance, not because they were evil. Absolutely not. I never showed them the full emotional range of me. And you know why it feels so hard to stop? Performing for love works. It gets approval, it gets stability, it gets less conflict, it gets people saying that you're amazing sometimes. But what it doesn't get, it's safety, that true intimacy, or actually being known fully for who you really are. And your nervous system kind of gets addicted to earning love instead of receiving it. I remember another dating phase where I dated someone very charismatic, very charming, very fun, but emotionally inconsistent, super inconsistent. And I became this hyper-attuned version of myself, watching tone changes, energy shifts. And one day I realized I knew his emotional patterns better than my own damn needs. That was my wake up. When you can predict someone else's emotional availability, okay, whatever, I think I spelled it wrong, but can't even name your own needs out loud, that alone is performance and not connection. If you see yourself in this, I need you to hear this part very clearly. You didn't invent this like coping style because you were weak or something. You built it because you were smart enough to survive your environment. And you were not broken for learning how to be lovable. But you do deserve relationships where you don't have to perform, or where you don't have to shrink, where you don't have to emotionally manage everyone, because that's exhausting. And the first step, I think it's not stop performing overnight. That's kind of difficult. The first step would be noticing, and like using these questions when you're noticing. Like, this is something that I did for myself, and they sound like this. When am I being me? And when am I being who I think is safest to be loved? That awareness alone, noticing and then asking yourself these questions, changes your life. It surely changed mine. For example, look at me a few years later, stepping in my own aura and voice, like having a podcast, being like a coach for other people. Like, this is totally hilarious, you know? And all of this because I started noticing. So start noticing. Unlearning performance doesn't make you harder to love. It just makes you impossible to love halfway, you know? We don't do halfway things anymore. No, not here. So if this episode made you feel seen, slightly attacked, understood, somehow called forward, then good. You were never hard to love. You were just trained to believe love had to be earned through performance. And girl, like, I've been thinking, maybe the real healing era is learning you are allowed to be loved while being damn inconvenient, super emotional, complex, evolving, and fully human. Because this is fully human. And while being who you really are. So I guess this concludes today's episode. If you'd like to connect on Instagram and join the broadcast channel of the podcast, feel free to follow Girl I've Been Thinking Podcast or my Instagram, which I'm gonna link below in the description of this episode. Until next time, girl, I hope you're gonna be thinking, because I'm gonna be thinking. Mwah.